right, everybody, welcome back to the ProPhysique Code. Guys, today we got a big episode. We got lots of things going on. Years and years of work go into getting on stage, and this was a big weekend. My man Evan made his second pro show of his career and took a huge step forward as far as fitting the criteria. But I'll say this, Evan, that whole division is taking a huge step forward.
Yes, it is.
Like your physique this weekend was literally like Olympia quality like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And now it's like these boys are brutal.
I was going through the people's post who were like the top 7, and it was like Olympia, 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 Olympia.
Yeah.
I think all the top 7's going to Olympia this year.
Yeah, and just seeing the guys in person backstage, you know, there's some guys that I'm walking around, I'm like, oh, Evan's got that guy beat. Oh, Evan's got that guy beat. And then you just see like, I don't know, beefcakes. I don't even know what these guys weigh. They're just dense, dude, bubbly. They don't look like men's physique in my mind would look like, you know.
It's a lot. It's a lot. I honestly think a few of the guys did this show this year because there's a new weight cap that's coming in next year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a few of these guys did the show this year because there's no weight cap. And it was the first Olympic qualification, of course, for next year's Olympia. So I think some of these guys went in there to try to get it.
What would your weight cap be?
Shoot, I think I'm not exactly sure the exact number, but I think it's around 234 pounds.
Okay, so you got some wiggle room there to put on some Nick Walker type muscle.
About 20 pounds.
Hey, I mean, when I posted that picture of you from 2019 at Nationals, what'd you weigh there?
Oh, 192 pounds, I think, 190 pounds.
Yeah, so you're 21 pounds up from there. You know what I'm saying? So like you're doing the work. You're changing the physique. And I'll say this, you know, bodybuilding is a sport of attrition. It's who sticks with it the longest that keeps putting it on and who's consistent. So I mean, if you make another step forward like you did in the last year, gosh, it's going to get real interesting.
Oh, I will. It'll be bigger than this one. That's for sure. Because I wasn't even going to compete this year.
Yeah.
You know, like it was kind of like a last second, hey, 10 weeks, let's prep. I'm already sort of lean sort of thing. With it.
You were already co-dieting because your girlfriend.
Yeah, I was co-dieting. We were co-dieting for vacation.
I mean,
right?
That's funny.
You're not going out to drinking out to dinners if someone in the house is in prep.
Yeah. So then after we got back from vacation, it was like, yeah, might as well. Right. Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to growing, really looking forward to adding more to like my chest and my back, which I already knew my feedback was my back is, I mean, everything was far better. Right. Like, but my back has come up, they said, just dramatically from
well, for YouTube, I'm going to show a video of you here in just a second, but I want to get Lexi's feedback on the weekend. Lexi, what did you think of the show?
I thought it was awesome. I mean, I thought it was very, because I went to it last year as well. I thought it was different than last year, just from a standpoint of it seemed a lot bigger, in my opinion. I do think that I heard that there were a lot more athletes, or
there was a lot more NPC. The NPC show almost doubled.
It was, it was a pretty big NPC show. It was interesting to see the girl who won all the overalls for bikini was the same girl. She won true novice overall, open overall. And actually, ironically enough, I was sitting watching prejudging with Steven, and I kept saying, I was like, I feel like I recognize her from my gym. But you know, when you see people all glammed up, sometimes it's hard to tell. And then sure enough, Sunday, I was at Powerhouse doing legs, and she came and she was doing a photo shoot. So with all of her hardware, but I thought it was an awesome show, big show. Loved the venue. Loved getting to watch Pro Bikini as well and see so many of your pros, because you had 10, right? 10 at this show?
10 bikini pros, and they all did so well. I'm very, very proud this weekend. Yeah, I was very happy.
Yeah, it was a great show to watch. It was, I don't know, I liked it. I had a great experience. So
yeah, so Hurricane, I don't know why, it's just always been one of my favorite shows from the fact that it's in our backyard. It's also, for those that don't know, it's Tim Gardner's oldest show. So that's the 23rd year of the Hurricane, because I asked him about it. It's the only show my wife ever did.
Yes, you have to talk about that. You were showing pictures of Misty, your wife. It's the only show she's done is the Hurricane, and they were like, how old were the pictures?
2009. my favorite picture is her backstage with Flex Lewis, you know, because Flex Lewis was a baby in 2009. He wasn't Mr. Olympia at the time. He was just he was kind of a up and coming bodybuilder from Wales that I knew of him because of like the message boards. Like we see his pictures and he was a cool guy, but he was so friendly, and you know, he still is, but you know, so she took a picture with Flex Lewis and Marcus Haley, who were like the guest posers. And then Tim likes to tell me the story of how they went out after that and drank too much. But yeah, so like, it's funny, like this sport, the longer you're around it, the more you realize like the camaraderie and the fellowship of the sport. And that's really what I enjoyed about this weekend. You know, as much as, you know, I'm proud of all the athletes and proud of seeing Evan do so great. It's like, I don't think you realize it early on in the sport. You get so focused on your results and prep. And then as the years pass, you just start to go, man, I didn't realize that this sport has really changed and shaped my life. I got, you know, the people in my life. And so this was one of those shows that I was just taking account of how grateful I am to be involved in doing what I do.
Yeah, I agree. I actually yesterday was thinking about that. I was thinking about how a lot of like, I feel like people that I've gotten really close with in the past year have all come from bodybuilding. And it's just because I feel like those are my people. They get me, and I feel like I can be my complete self around them.
Listen,
but like
we're all crazy, and it's okay to admit it. We're a little cuckoo.
Yeah, but it's then I think that's why a lot of my friends do come from this sport, is it's just like they don't judge. Like we're all our own type of crazy. But you know, part of the awesome part of this sport, and just also this team, is just the camaraderie, the support. I feel like, you know, with a big group of females, like, you know, sometimes you hear these horror stories of, you know, females being catty with one another, but I don't feel like we have that at all on this team. Like all the girls that we had this weekend at the
I've always
show,
said the people that don't fit our mold work themselves out. You know, I've had some complaints about some competitors this year, and as they disappear, you kind of go, that makes sense, right? Because if they don't fit, if they're too self-absorbed, if they're too, you know, entitled, it just doesn't, it feels icky. It's hard to describe. But this weekend was certainly not about that. This weekend was just an awesome time. And this was one of the shows that I was considering doing, but I'm so glad I didn't do it because, you know, just from the size of the NPC show in the morning, to the size of the pro show. And then, you know, the cool thing was once all that was done, then it was just Evan. The last thing to go was the pro men. So I got to like, you know, go backstage and watch Evan pump up and be backstage and just see all these pro bodybuilders, you know, like not for nothing. I'm still like in awe of all these guys. And so it's fun to see it and sit there as a fan sometimes and not just be so caught up in the results and the placings and the, you know, so yeah.
It was a long day. I think I was there. The athlete meeting was at 7. I didn't get there at 7. I got there at 8. And I think we left right around like 10:15.
Yeah, you didn't even need to get there till like 2. Like they didn't even start.
I had athletes competing.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. So that is a long day, and we'll see. So that was kind of my concern. I want my next show to be just about me. I want to be a little biatch on show day. I want to like do my thing.
Be a diva. That's your quote.
I don't focus on myself at all if I have an athlete competing, right? So it's just like I'll do the show, but it wouldn't have been, you know, so we'll make it happen again. But let me do a quick screen share just for YouTube because I want to show you guys. I was able to get some footage, and we're still going to be getting more professional footage coming up in the future. But I'm going to do a screen share and just show Evan's posing routine. So make sure you guys tell me if you can see this as it plays.
Yes, tune into YouTube.
We couldn't open the file. What in God's green earth? Why would it do this?
It just worked.
No, it literally just worked. Hold on, I'm gonna click it again and just reopen the file.
You did look amazing, Evan. Like I don't really know too much about the whole like the men's divisions, but you, from what I could see, like your improvements from last time you competed to now, like crazy night and day difference.
Yeah, it's funny. I was significantly lighter at this show than I was last year with more muscle, which was good. And I was talking to a few people about this afterwards, and while you know I did not place, this was I honestly feel like for me, the muscle I have, the muscle I carry, everything right now, this was about as good as I could be right now.
Yeah. that's awesome. I mean, that's got to feel comforting knowing that, right? Like you left no stone unturned.
All right. So you guys can see the video now?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right. So here's Evan's routine.
Yes.
Steven yells, "He's so handsome." Good. Holding his pose perfectly. The lower back detail, that to me is truly conditioning. The traps and the lower lat insertions were not there last time you competed. The V taper, your back width has come up so much. Your chest fullness has come up so much. So yeah, it's just bodybuilding's weird because you have to have a lot of faith in it. I gotta cancel the screen share.
And when you see too, I put up something yesterday on my story about it. Like, I'm a tall guy compared to a lot of these guys, right?
Yeah.
There's some taller guys too that are very good. But like, if you see me on stage, I'm literally like a head or two heads above the vast majority of the guys on there, right? So for me to fill out my frame and to have that V taper, it's just gonna take even longer.
Yeah, and I mean,
for me,
you're still very young in the sport. Like your years of training are not matching your years of life because you did other things. You were a football player, you know, like, so you're still just warming up. You're not maxing things out. So but it's for those that don't compete or those that thought about competing, I think the hardest part for most of us is when we're the furthest away from the stage we can be. And you when you're not stage lean, you don't see the changes happening. You sense them. You're like, okay, you get a little glimpse in a mirror, your shirt gets a little bit tighter, but then in the back of your head, well, like, is it just body fat? Then when you strip it all down and you get to see the changes, it's like, wow, I did that. And then you got to start all over. So it takes a very specific kind of person that loves delayed gratification that can benefit and enjoy this sport.
And what was really exciting to me about this part, and then we can stop talking about me, is that you know, last year was kind of a tough year for me at the end of the year, and especially after Tampa. So I had a lot of life changes. So for like 3 months after that, it was kind of a lot in flux. And so I did have a good offseason. It just wasn't as good as I normally try to make it. And so when I was going to the show, I was like, I'm not sure what I'm going to look like. And so when I did diet down and saw everything, I was very happy with what I saw. And that makes me even more excited for next time, right? Because I will be that much better with a good year and a half, maybe longer of growth into that. Oh, man.
Yeah. So,
oh, man, it's gonna be fun.
It's good to see that you've gotten your life in such a place where, because bodybuilding is so much just about consistency, right? It's not about having a great workout today and then a shit one tomorrow, or having a great day of eating today. It's literally about the most boring routine. Go to the gym, eat your meals, go to bed, repeat, do that for a long time. You see the results. There's a lot of people that are great for a couple weeks and then they miss a whole week of the gym, right? And it's like compounding interest. If you miss a week in the gym, you go backwards 3 weeks and you got to kind of build back up to get where you were. So it's really cool to see the progress that you've made, because it's going to be really cool to see what happens next. Really.
Thank you, buddy. And thank you for all your help too. Paul was backstage helping me pump up. I had some digestive issues on Friday that I was aware of, but I didn't want to admit to myself. And thank you for calling me out on that, Paul, because it helped me fix a lot of the issues, because I would not have looked good on Saturday if it wasn't for you. So thank you for that.
You know, and this is the part of the sport that's hardest to understand, because Evan is self-coached. And as much as, you know, even anybody that coaches themselves, you get hyper-focused on some things, and the process speeds up at the end of prep. And so you're hyper-focused on one thing and you might miss something else. So it's always good to just have that second eye. And Evan has a lot of people around him that have seen a lot of things. So, you know, listen, backstage watching you pump up, that is the best I've ever seen you. I've got a video here. Let me see if I can do one more screen share while we're on the topic, because this video right here to me is the best I've ever seen you. I found some pretty decent lighting backstage. So here's the video of Evan kind of just, why does it do that? I just played it. Oh, this is so frustrating. I literally just played this. Hold on, I'm going to bring it back up.
Is it that video or the one under the fluorescent lighting?
It was the one right. We were like kind of back by the stage.
Okay, the backstage one. Yeah.
Yeah. This one right here. Yeah. Okay. So now I can do my screen share. Sorry, guys. I really wanted to show everybody on YouTube because it's so hard to explain, what things look like. Here we go. So this is literally a few minutes before he walked on stage. We were, full. Look at your abs are like etched in, lower back, super tight. You can see all the fingers in your lower lats. Traps are full. Yeah, yeah. What's cool is I could see other guys looking over at you like, damn, that dude looks good.
Yeah, I was peeled. I did have that in spades.
I mean, there are certain things you can control in bodybuilding, your conditioning, your posing. Those are things you can control, and you did a great job with those. Obviously, you can't control how long some other guy's been training or some other guy's genetics. So you're going up against those things, but you controlled the controllables very well. And the fact that you made this much improvement from your pro debut to now, or even your turning pro, right? Like that's the win. That's the win.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just like, boom, just you're a much better athlete. So, and then you said you had some athletes at the show too. So like, you did a good job being there for them. And I do like the way they run these shows where they do kind of like the block formatting. And Tim did a good job because at prejudging, they had so many NPC athletes. They did not do any routines. They only did comparisons, which helped speed it up so that the show didn't end at midnight. Because I stayed till the very end of the show and I was out of there by 10, which that's not bad for a show with probably 500-600 athletes crossing the stage in total.
I think it was 550, they said, with crossovers in NPC and IPV. It was a huge show.
They managed to get all the NPC done before the pros, and then the pros got to go, they bookend the pros with the NPC. NPC goes first, then all the pros go prejudging and finals, then the NPC goes last, right? So I love that. I love when they do that because I feel like it just allows the pros to feel like, okay, we get treated just a little bit better.
It allows the pros to be treated like pros.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Well, you guys want to dive into our topic for today of prep mythbusters, kind of
Let's do it.
About some prep myths, things we hear, like really common things that we hear, and we'll chat about if there's any validity behind them. So does anything come to your guys' mind first, like biggest prep myth that you want to just disclose right off the bat?
Cutting water.
You have to completely cut out water to look dry.
I think I was talking to you about this, Paul. I was like, I almost drank a gallon of water before I went on stage.
It's not a coincidence. Like the term dry needs to go away because I get why people say it because your skin looks dry because there's no body fat there, but it's not dry as in dehydrated. It's dry as in your muscles are so full and your body fat is so low that your skin is literally stretched. So it looks like you have.
And you're not holding on to excess water.
Right.
You're not holding excess water. So that's when people say dry, it's just you don't have any extra water on you. You have
there's nowhere for water to be stored. Anybody that's gotten down to being shredded like where Evan is, you realize the more water you drink, the more you pee. It doesn't go anywhere. It just goes right through you. When you are stage lean, you are literally peeing all day long. There's no excess storage. In fact, my kind of philosophy or my theory on this is like everybody I know, and this I've noticed this about myself, and now you guys can correlate this. The leaner you get, the more you start to crave salty food, right? You crave. I remember one prep, I was like, why do I want hot sauce on everything? And then I realized like hot sauce is loaded with sodium, soy sauce loaded with sodium, salty foods. I believe it's because when you're that lean, your body is not getting the signals from your fat cells that it's hydrated. So it actually believes it's dehydrated. So it changes your desires. You start to crave saltier foods and they start to taste better because that helps you stay more hydrated.
And I think part of it too is when you're peeing so much, you're excreting a lot of the sodium that you're taking in.
Oh yeah. Well. That's one of my favorites.
You have to keep constantly filling it.
Coach, I'm dehydrated, but I drank 2 gallons of water. And I'm like, well, you can actually overconsume water to the point where your body will produce hormones that expedite the process of fluids leaving the body. So you're actually just making the process worse. Like you said, you're just speeding up all those electrolytes, sodium, potassium, magnesium, just getting out of the body. And if you're not replacing those, that's when you get to that place where you just can't get a pump. Your food isn't digesting well. So yeah, I think.
And Paul, you know that, like, so you need sodium, potassium to be hydrated. Those are the two of the main things you need to be hydrated is sodium, potassium. So if you don't have a lot of sodium and you're drinking a lot of water, you're going to dehydrate yourself doing that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my favorite things to do is give somebody like a sodium bomb before prejudging or before finals, you know, like 1,000, 2,000 milligrams of sodium, usually in the form of a Chipotle bowl. But you do that and your body just starts to absorb everything and it just fills out those muscles. Sodium is also part of the transport for glycogen to get to your muscles. So it's necessary to be in the digestive system for things to run properly. So, you know, you'll hear competitors say like, oh, my coach cut my sodium and increased my water. And I'm like, ooh, that is a recipe for just looking the worst you can possibly look at the moment that you've been absolutely dieting for.
Yeah, it still kind of baffles me, like how many times I've been backstage and heard like bikini girls just complain about how thirsty they are and like, oh my gosh, I've only gotten this much water today. Like it's kind of baffles me that that stuff still goes on because I feel like it is a very old school kind of way of thinking. And I would have hoped that people would have evolved since then, but you still hear a lot of people backstage complaining of being thirsty or like that they haven't had any water that day. So,
you know,
what's one for you, Lexi?
what? What's
sorry,
one
Paul, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, I was going to say, as a coach, I've tried to learn to understand instead of just being negative about a different coach's approach. I've tried to understand, you know, so I have heard some people say, well, like, you know, you don't want too much fluids on show day because your core might, you know, you might actually get some distension. But understanding that if you're eating food and not drinking water, that's going to make your digestion worse. You're not going to digest the food. I'm all for controlling fluids on show day, right? You don't want to just be freewheeling, just pounding water. But yeah, just understanding that if you're ready a week out, 2 weeks out, 3 days out, doing anything drastic on show day is just more than likely going to undo what you've done. So for me, it's more about creating consistency for show day. Pay attention. It's always nice when you can be there in person and say like, okay, you just ate a meal and you look 5% better. I want you to eat again in 90 minutes, right? Like just, you can kind of see it happening. Cause usually the way I peak people, they look better on show day with each meal. It's not like, you know, you want to avoid. Whereas I do understand if someone's not quite stage lean, if you dehydrate, there is a period of time where you might look a little better. It's a tough window to nail, but when water is leaving the body, you will look a little bit tighter for a period of time until you get the muscles dehydrated. So I try not to just, you know, be negative about every approach until I know more about it. But for the most part, those peaking protocols where water is removed, sodium is reduced, and they try to do some type of a show day carb up, you're just gonna struggle to digest in an amount of time that you need.
If you're not lean enough, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Amen.
Yep.
And I think that can kind of go into another myth. I feel like I think this is more common amongst like people who have never competed before or newer competitors thinking that peak week is this like magical week where like a ton of change is going to happen, not only in the body, but like a ton of change to the protocol. Cause I will oftentimes give my first time competitors their peaking plan and they expect like something that's drastically different than what they've already been doing. When really it shouldn't be a whole ton different than what you've already been doing. Like consistency is the biggest variable there.
If you're ready, you're ready. Like, honestly, like I wouldn't, if I was, let's say I invented this coaching thing, there wouldn't even be a term called peak week. I think that is half the problem is people are like, it's peak week. And they want this radical, like you said, thing to happen. My peak weeks are super mild, super mild. The real value in peak week is that we're just taking the physique from here to like 5 to 10% better on show day. That's the goal.
Yeah. You always say you're fine tuning the Ferrari, right?
Yeah, that's it. And then, you know, you can see some real magic happen at the last hour or two when you've filled a person out and they start to pump up. I mean, the change that we saw with Evan from the day before to the next day was magical. Like he, you know, his digestion improved, his muscles filled out, he looked great. And that's a tough window to be in because you second guess everything. It even happened with me and Ariana. I saw her at the gym on Friday and she was so flat. And mind you, her carbs had been going up, but there's also this situation where sometimes when the food goes up, you burn through it faster. And I was looking at her going, man, is she out of shape or is she flat? And like, you know, her husband was there and I kept saying like, what are you seeing? And he's like, no, she's super flat. Like she can't get a pump. There's no, so we fed the crap out of her. And on Saturday morning, I was like, okay, there it is. Right. So it's a lot of it's experience and seeing the physique, because you can get into a panic the last day or two just based on what you're seeing. So it's, yeah, that's, I mean, when you talk about being experienced as a competitor and as a coach, I would never be prepped by someone who doesn't compete or hasn't competed recently. Like you just, the mindset, the psychology, the understanding of the narrative, you've got to be kind of there, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And competing, and me competing this year again is helping me be a better coach as well.
Yeah.
I tried to learn as much as I could learn through this. And Paul, I remember we were sitting before we went backstage, and I told you, I was like, I hope all this comes together and I get a pump and it all works out. Cause right now I don't look like I've even worked out a day in my life.
Oh, I remember you
saying I was sitting there. I'd been sitting all day. I'd been resting. I'd been eating. And I was like, let's see what happens here. And as soon as we start getting pumped up, you're like, oh yeah, we're good. As soon as I started moving, everything just came to life.
Yeah. With my male competitors, usually what I'll do is the morning of the show after their first meal, I'll say, I want you to do 25 push-ups, nice and slow. And if you're not busting at the shoulders and in 25 push-ups, then we're behind. We need to start eating more, right? So yeah, there's, you know, it's like you're basically all week loading the chamber, and on show day you're just ready to fire.
Pull the trigger. Yeah.
Yes. What about the old myth that fish thins the skin? I feel like that's one I've always heard. And I mean, I know it's not always true. I mean, I could kind of see a little bit of the rationale behind it, I guess, if you really break it down. But I'll
let Evan explain this one, and I'll jump in if I have anything.
Okay.
Go for it, Evan.
Does it actually thin your skin? No. Does it have no fat in whitefish, and does it digest very easily? Yes, it does do that. So it's less calories because there's no fats in it, and it digests incredibly well. So with that being said, you will typically drop more body fat and be tighter. So it doesn't thin your skin, but it will make you leaner.
You know, we work in an era where everyone tracks their calories, everyone tracks their macros. Most people are pretty fine-tuned with their diet. The idea that fish thins the skin, in my mind, goes back to probably 60s, 70s, and 80s when people did not do that. And they would take all the red meat out of their diet and swap it with fish. So yeah, if you're eating ground beef, which is, you know, 30% fat, and you swap it with fish, which is 0% fat, yeah, you just pulled out several hundred calories of your diet while you're still hitting your protein goals. Oh man, my skin looks thinner. Well, yeah, you have less body fat, but it had nothing to do with a direct correlation. Is you could have just eaten leaner protein sources. It didn't have to be fish.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think too, I notice when I eat white fish, even if I compare that to eating like chicken breast, that essentially it's similar, doesn't have too much fat on it. I always just find that digestion wise, my body digests fish so much better, and I just feel leaner and I feel flatter. Love chicken, but it doesn't always digest as smoothly as something like white fish does.
It doesn't. I mean, and I'm not going to get on a soapbox on this right now with the conventional farming and all that. It's hard to find good quality chicken this day. It's hard. Yeah. You can find good quality whitefish, though. You can find some wild caught whitefish that's easy. And that stuff, if it's not messed with, it digests better. Chicken doesn't digest like it used to. You can get high quality chicken, but it's hard to find. You have to order it. You're typically not going to find it at a store.
Yeah, they obviously loaded up. I mean, if you look at the chicken breasts at one store versus another, they're literally double the size because they're all loaded up with, like, you know.
Well, they just keep breeding the biggest with the biggest with the biggest with the biggest, and then it's just like it's not.
Yeah. So and I think it, you know, the idea of the fish, it literally just comes down to the fact that, like, if you're coaching a lot of competitors, you just start to notice trends, right? So, you know, I'll even notice things with multiple people, and I'll start instituting it with other clients because I'm just like, okay, this is working. It might not, if I said it out loud, it might not make sense, but it's working, right? So, you know, sometimes people say things like fish thins the skin, Truth is, fish has less calories, right? So yes, by the transverse process, maybe this is correct in a statement, but you can also take the person that says that and make them look bad because they don't actually know what they're talking about. But in a way they do, because bodybuilding is all about anecdote. It's been around for so long. There are like these, like, you know, I don't know, theories or like, you know, old proverbs that we say, you know, fasted cardio works better. Well, research shows that fasted cardio does not work better, but I'll be damned if I don't know everybody doing fasted cardio, because even though it may not technically burn more calories than fed state cardio, doing your cardio first thing in the morning, it's just, it makes you feel better. It makes me more adherent to my diet. So
yeah. That's another, I mean, that's another myth right there, is that fasted cardio is superior to fed cardio. But I do fasted cardio, and I kind of compare it to like, it's the making your bed of the fitness industry. Cause like there's, you know, that research out there that people that make their bed typically are more productive in the day. I find the same effect with fasted cardio. When I do it first thing in the morning, first and foremost, I don't even have time to like think and procrastinate it. I just get up and do it, and then it's done. And then you just feel like it has kind of a domino effect on everything else you're doing throughout the day. You feel more motivated, you have that dopamine release, you're more, you know, incentivized to crush your diet, be more productive.
I have less hunger if I do cardio in the morning. And I know Evan lives right down there on the water, so I know he's been enjoying his morning walks.
Yeah.
Been nice. It was huge. It was a huge help.
So is fasted cardio better? No, but yes. I mean,
well,
yeah.
Andrew Huberman had a quote one day that like a couple months ago I thought was outstanding. He was like, everyone used to make fun of bro science, so it turned into real science.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a lot of the way kind of some of this stuff goes. And he was referring more to like hormones and testosterone and kind of stuff like that. But he's like, even today, talking about like training specific body parts and stuff like that. He's like, the science will say this. He's like, but in reality, there's other factors in play.
Yeah, research can't capture data the way bodybuilders can. Research is like 12 weeks, right? Like you do a research study on an exercise, they do it for 12 weeks. We've got bodybuilders that have been doing things certain ways for 20, 30 years, right? So they just have more data on that stuff. So yeah, that's the thing about research, is that it in itself, it's not actually capturing accurate data. They, you know, they're pulling a few people into a study, some people drop out, you know, and then you've got to look at the study design, you got to look at how it was overlooked. So is there value in research? Absolutely. I mean, we learn a lot of valuable stuff from it, but you know, you can't minimize the importance of experience, and coaching athletes. You just get experience that's impossible to replicate in a lab or in a study. And sometimes I think the bro science, the problem is that people say something works for the wrong reason. They don't understand why it works, but they'll say something like, oh, fasted cardio works because you burn more calories in a fasted state. Okay, we know that's not true. But why is fasted cardio better? It's actually, for me, better because it's better appetite suppressant. It lowers my cortisol. I feel better throughout the day. I feel like I have more cognitive function. I'm less likely to go off my diet because I got up and did something in the morning.
Yep.
So it's like, there are these reasons that for me, getting up and doing cardio, and honestly, I don't want to eat at 5 a.m. when I'm doing these cardio sessions. I've tried it both ways, and it just doesn't feel good. So I do it, but you just have to like kind of dig through like the reasons people are saying things work.
Mm-hmm. And for me, when I got up and did like my walks and stuff, because I didn't do any like real structured cardio, it was mainly just steps. And but when I did it, I can tell you, my psyche, when I would get up and I would do it very first thing, and I got up and I had my clothes laid out, I'd roll out of bed at 4:20. I was out the door at 4:30 in my walk, get back at like 5:30, and then be ready for the day. Get my first meal at 6. Everything just ran like clockwork.
Yeah.
If I overslept till 5, got up and did that, had to short my walk a little bit, whole day got thrown off.
So I started doing something this year just out of, to stay in my routine whenever, because, you know, I've been to maybe 40 shows this year. You know, it's very easy when you're in a hotel to just sleep in and get a coffee and start working. I would get up every day I was in a hotel and go down to do the treadmill at 5 or 6 in the morning, even if it's just 30 minutes. That rush of like getting the blood pumping, getting my brain going, I'd come back to the room, shower, and have my breakfast, and I would have a great day. If I just laid in bed until the day started, it definitely would put a damper on things. So yeah,
I saw a post from an Instagram account, like I can't remember this person's title, but she was saying how like your brain is you're able to program your brain the most that first hour of the day that you're awake. So it makes sense why doing fasted cardio just it elicits a domino effect into everything else you do throughout the day, and it just makes things run smoother.
Yeah.
Get your day started on the right foot, right? So does fasted cardio burn more calories? No. Does it help you get your day started on the right foot? Does it help you be more active throughout the day, which probably will burn more calories? Yeah.
It'd be a
For a lot of
very
people, it
interesting
does.
study design to actually take two groups of people, or maybe the same group, and have the one group do cardio before they start their day every day, and have another group that's allowed to do the cardio whenever they want. And just to see the adherence, to see how many people that, because the problem with like, okay, say I have an hour cardio session that I need to do, and I don't do it at 5:30 in the morning, and now it's 5 in the afternoon. Something happens at the house. One of my kids gets sick. You know, like things start to pile up. Now it's 8, 9 o'clock. Man, I really don't want to do this cardio session.
Yeah.
Or it's like it's the middle of the day. If you have a family, you have plans, you have things going on. The wife's going to get annoyed because you didn't do what you're supposed to do in the morning. Now you got to do it in the middle of dinner time, and it's like it causes problems throughout the rest of your life.
Yeah. So it's like stealing time, getting up, and so yeah, I think the myth of fasted cardio, it's more about it improves your lifestyle, it improves your mood, it improves your adherence. But like if you just look at it from like that 30-minute perspective of is my cardio fed or fasted, you just look at it through that microscope, you go, no, it's not any better, but it makes your day better to do it fasted. And maybe this isn't for everybody, but when something works, you don't have to question it. You don't have to be like, well, science says I should be fed. Well, it might not be, because I've tried it. I've tried having food before that 5 to, I'm starving the rest of the day. I don't know what it is. It just triggers that hunger response all day long.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, same thing. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to say on the topic of cardio, I think another kind of myth we can chat about is like HIIT cardio, because I know some people out there think HIIT cardio is tremendously superior to steady state. And I think like Paul, you have really great perspective on this, like because the majority of your competitors do steady state, right?
It's almost like as prep goes along, I have these little I have a toolbox of cardio tools that I use.
Mm-hmm.
HIIT cardio is not in my toolbox anymore. And for those that use the term high intensity interval training, you're probably not actually doing HIIT cardio, right? You're not actually doing intervals, life or death, 15-second sprints. You're probably doing interval cardio, which is awesome. And it's a step up from steady state. And I do have clients do either walk jogs, or I'll have them do intervals on the stairs where they go a little bit faster, a little bit slower. But true HIIT cardio, if you go back and watch my videos, I was doing it to the letter of the law when I was working with Lane. I was literally doing sled pushes. I was doing, I would shake the spin bike off its foundation at the gym, like pedaling so hard. That, I think the only real value in that is if you do a sport that requires that type of VO2 max necessity, right? If you're doing some type of sprinting in an activity, yeah, you need to be able to pull from that and be better at it. Bodybuilders, the only time we get near a HIIT type stuff is like when you take a leg set to failure, maybe a back set, you start to really breathe heavy. But I don't think for me, I don't think there's any value in having a super high VO2 max. In fact, I noticed my resting heart rate got really low. My body temperature would drop drastically. Hormonally, I was more of a mess. My hunger signals were more whacked out. When I stopped doing HIIT cardio, I almost felt like it was a cheat code for prep. I'm like, I'm not having any of these issues that I had in prep with HIIT.
I also find that if you're doing a lot of HIIT, usually it's harder to recover from, and a lot of times it can bring down that NEAT activity the rest of the day. Like if you are crushing yourself and murdering yourself in a true HIIT session, like not a 30-minute quote unquote HIIT session. If you can do HIIT for 30 minutes, you're probably doing intervals. But like if you're truly crushing yourself in a HIIT session, it's going to take a lot out of you, and you're probably going to feel really run down the rest of the day. And that's going to also bring down your NEAT. You're going to probably find that just like naturally your body is trying to conserve more energy. You're not getting up and moving as much. So that can kind of play into your total, calories burned on a daily basis too.
Yep. And that's something that, 10 years ago when I was coaching, no coaches were paying attention to that. Yeah. They were prescribing calories, cardio, and, basically going, did you make progress? That was my first experience with my first coach, Lane. And you don't know what you don't know. And now looking back, I realized and you mentioned something about your NEAT is lower. I also remember on the days that I had HIIT cardio scheduled, I would conserve energy planning for that. I'd tell my wife like, oh no, I'm not doing anything today until my HIIT session at noon. Right. Like,
yeah, you kind of anticipate it too. Like it takes me back
it's
to
hard.
yeah, it takes me back to like when I was a gymnast. I remember like when I got up there, like the coaches, they were mean, and I would like the hour or two before practice, I would just like anticipate it and like get so nervous. And I feel like that can happen if you have HIIT cardio, if it's true HIIT. Like sometimes you kind of build up that anticipation, and you're right. You try to conserve as much energy, just knowing how hard you're going to have to push.
100%. Yeah. Did you ever do HIIT? Because I remember your first prep was kind of old school, way back, right?
Oh, did I do HIIT? Yeah, I mean, with my previous relationship, she was a big fan of HIIT, so I used to do a lot of it.
Yeah. So, I mean, listen, does it get you shredded? Yeah, it's a tool. It burns calories and it can be used. But I experimented on myself in 2018. I said, I'm going to try to do an entire prep. I got a treadmill in my office, and I said, I'm going to try. You know what it was? It was literally watching the Ronnie Coleman video. I got bored one day in 2017, 2018, and I just put on the Ronnie Coleman, The Unbelievable DVD, for those of you that know what a DVD is. So basically, it's like it documents maybe the last 6 or 8 weeks of his prep. The man was the most shredded muscular bodybuilder the planet has ever seen. There's no debating that. He would get up in the morning, walk for an hour, go to work, go to the gym, come home, walk for an hour. And I was like, if this man can do what he's doing just walking, I'm going to try it. And it worked. I was like blown away at how, I mean, obviously he was 280 pounds or whatever he was doing the walking. So, he's burning a lot of calories just doing that. But still, that was kind of what got me thinking like, okay, if it was good enough for him, let me just see what happens. And it was kind of a self-experiment. And then lo and behold, you start bringing down inflammation. People's workouts are better. Their NEAT is higher because they're not dead to the world after a cardio session, So yeah, I think there's, like I said, there's tools in the toolbox of cardio. And at a certain point, sometimes you got to get on the damn stairs. Sometimes you got to do intervals. You got to do what you got to do. But I don't think I'll ever have anybody do true HIIT. Also, I tweaked my hamstring one prep, sprinting.
Oh yeah, you're more I would say, yeah, another down or a bad thing about HIIT cardio is you are more susceptible to an injury potentially.
Yeah,
sure. I know people that tore their calf right before a big show doing HIIT.
Yeah. I mean, your immune system's compromised, your joints are compromised, and here you are, like going all out. Yeah, slippery slope.
And I tried it this time with my prep with just walking, right? And it worked like a charm. I did. Yeah. There was a couple 25-minute stair sessions I did, and that was just on Monday or Tuesday and Wednesday when I didn't have enough time to move as much. So I would supplement at that point. But outside of that, I didn't. And my workouts were better. I tell you, I was the leanest I've ever been. And was I tired? For sure. But my body looked fresh.
There's no avoiding fatigue when your body fat gets low. Like there's just not but like you said, the walking for me, honestly, I've been, so this is an experiment I'm doing now, which you guys will find out on YouTube. Anytime I feel a little bit tired during the middle of the day, instead of having caffeine, I get up and do a walk on my treadmill.
Yep. So I'm doing right after this podcast.
It literally just props me back up and I feel like, okay, I'm ready to go again. So I've got my morning cardio session. I've got my middle of the day workout. And if I need it, I've got a PM cardio session, but I have kids, so that I'm playing soccer in the backyard half the time or whatever I'm doing with them. So movement is probably the most underrated thing there is. Like, just move, just get moving. Don't sit still.
Yeah, low impact movement. I feel like it actually it energizes you, because I do it too. Like throughout the day, I always start my day off with just a walk outside, and then I'll do that middle of the afternoon when I'm kind of feeling myself slow down a little bit, and just getting outside, getting that sunlight, getting that fresh air, moving. It kind of gives you an extra energy burst. So I like that you're doing that experiment, because I feel like naturally a lot of people do turn to caffeine when they start to kind of feel.
Oh yeah, you get that yawn.
Yeah.
We're gonna go get a coffee, right? Well, I'm like, let me try something different. And so I have two things I'm trying. One, and you'll laugh because I think I used to do the videos on this, 50 jumping jacks. Sounds stupid. Get up and do 50 jumping jacks. A, your heart rate's going to go way over 100. B, you probably break a sweat. And C, when you sit back down, you don't need caffeine.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense because I know like when I was in school, a lot of times professors or teachers would actually like have us stand up middle of the class. If they see you kind of like dozing off, they'll have you stand up and stretch or whatever. So like, yeah, it makes sense. And I notice a direct correlation with during the day when I find myself kind of getting tired. It's usually for those parts of the day where I'm sitting for a while, right? Whereas if I'm up and I'm moving, I don't usually notice that energy crash. It's usually just when I'm sitting for extended periods of time.
Yep.
Yeah.
So a little.
Cool. What are some other myths that you guys can think of that you want to touch on?
So we got fish thins the skin. We've got HIIT cardio. We've got fasted cardio. I don't know. It's funny. I think we talked about, you got to cut water to look dry.
Yeah.
Oh, how about this?
You have
one?
to. I gotta get. Okay.
Don't be ready for your show early. That was a big one when I was competing. I remember I was in the gym and someone's like, "When's your show?" And I was like, "Oh, it's in like 6 weeks." So they're like, "Oh, don't peak too early. Don't miss your." I was like, "Oh, what? What does that mean?" I remember I probably sent Lane an email.
Yeah, I feel like I've been seeing some conflicting information about this more so recently on like social media. Some people say, you don't want to be ready too early. And then there's the argument of, well, if you're ready early, can you just reverse into the show? So yeah, that I think that this topic does bring about a lot of different opinions.
And also I can tell you, if you go to a lot of bodybuilding shows, most people don't need to worry about being ready early. Most people just need to be ready. So how about just get ready?
Well, I also think just in general, people are trying to like give you a little dig instead of a compliment, just in like all the time. Like I'll have an athlete that's at the gym and they'll be like, "Coach, this person says I should be eating more red meat." And I'll be like, well, the reason that person is talking to you is because you look good. The reason they're talking down to you is to make you feel like you need them. Like, it's like, it never fails my clients towards the end of prep. You get more attention in the gym. You just look different. People want to talk to you, but they almost want to give you like a backhanded compliment. Like, don't be ready too early. Like, what the crap are you talking about? Don't be ready too early. Now, listen, I don't understand the side of the game of the pro open bodybuilders that have to really understand the drug cycles. Like, that is a whole other level to this sport. That's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking about people that think if you get your ready too early, you start to lose muscle. You can miss your peak. For me, you have to be ready early so we can test how we're going to fill you out. But obviously open bodybuilding and those guys that's a whole other situation because they are trying to be 300 pounds at 3% body fat on stage. And so that's not what I'm referring to. I'm talking about if you are ready early, that's an advantage. We can now really test our peaking. Mock peak weeks is like my favorite thing this year. I've been doing it a lot.
Yeah, I think it also brings down cortisol on the athlete too. If you're ready early, you're ready and you don't have that subconscious stress of like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm going to be ready. Because I think a lot of athletes don't realize that they put that stress on themselves, the last weeks leading up to a show. So being ready can also have, I feel like, a cortisol advantage from you just feel a lot more like at ease and content with knowing that you're right on the mark.
Yeah. It's a crazy place to be when you're able to bring food up, drop cardio down, continue getting leaner, all because you're not like 2 weeks out and still need to lose a pound, right? It's remarkable just how positive of an impact, and that sets up your post-show experience, like
for sure.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
What was your post-show like, Evan? Where'd you guys go?
Yeah, I want to hear about
there wasn't a lot open by the time we got back.
Oh, because you had to wait for Danielle too.
Yeah, so we didn't do a lot that night.
I kind
of
went
to like a brunch yesterday, which would have been good at the restaurant we picked was good, and enjoyed a few little treats, and then went to Boulan and had the burger last night, which was literally the best burger ever.
Oh, I've never been there. That's Mulan. I'll have to try that. It
is the best burger ever. It's like a nice restaurant, but the burger there is so good.
I was going to say, like, this is so good. 1-day post-show taste buds, which are different than off-season taste buds?
Let me put it this way. I've had 5 clients in their check-ins that live around the Tampa area be like, because they know I like burgers, they're like,
Yeah.
if you go to Boulan, make sure you get the burger.
Okay, cool. I'm definitely coming
the
for that.
best. Even Danielle, who I hyped this thing up to no end, she had it. She's like, that's the best burger I've had.
Perfect. Wait, where is it? I've never heard of it.
Really, right across the street from where I live, like right
Oh,
right across from Amalie Arena, like right
I
across
need
from
to
there.
try it out too. I'm not really a burger person, but now you've got me
It's so good.
wondering.
Is it in that little area where like that bowling alley is and all those little shops?
No, it's across the street from that. It's like at Water Street where all the new restaurants are,
Okay.
like right in there.
Yeah, that area is really changing. Really changing.
Yeah, there's a lot of nice spots that open up there.
It
Yeah.
will probably be like we may be close by for the experience.
Oh, we didn't even mention this. So the
so
Command the
we can
Stage.
check it out then. Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
The Command the Stage is the last week of February, and that's a part of it. We're doing it in downtown Tampa. That is going to be amazing. The gym, the seminars, the training, it's all going to be there. So if you go to ProPhysique.com events, you can reserve your spot. I think it's very limited this year. We actually reduced how many entries we have.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
We got to start saying it at the beginning of the podcast.
I know. No, we haven't even really talked about it yet. But yeah, it's gonna be amazing.
Actually, you know what we should do is we should get all the details and do one just on that. I think it'd be a good idea.
That'd be a great idea.
Definitely.
Kind of talk about what it is and
Yeah. No, I had I think 5 or 6 clients last year that came, all had an amazing experience. I feel like it was awesome. I don't know about you guys, but like after those weekends, even just like show weekends, you kind of leave and you feel like you have this like high, you're just like high on life.
Always.
I don't know this,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Any like last minute kind of, as we start to wrap things up, any other like weird myths you guys can think of, or things you've heard people say that make you roll your eyes? I feel like, Paul, you probably hear a lot from like bikini girls that,
the thing is, I've been around the sport so long, and I think a lot of the stuff for me has kind of dissipated because I'll for example, politics, like, it might not necessarily have to do with our physiques or this and that, but when you first get into the sport, you always hear like, oh, this person won because of politics. And so you start to go, yeah, that's why my girl didn't win. No, it's not why your girl didn't win. It's not why your guy didn't win. Your guy didn't win because they were not the best on that day. And the judges only care about what is on stage, right? And even me, who I could, get frustrated at times based on placings, and you guys have been on stage and you could get frustrated with your placings and your athletes' placings. You got to step back and understand that the judge's job is to uphold the criteria to the best of their ability. And on that given day, your girl might have the best conditioning, but she might not be full enough. And she might have the most muscle, but she might not fit the criteria. So it's when you take the idea of politics and make that your reason, it takes away your requirement to get better. That's the problem I have with it. So let me say like one of my clients' husbands, right? This has happened to me before, not so much anymore, but like they'll come up to me and say like, oh, I'm just so frustrated. I don't want so-and-so competing in these shows because it's all politics. And I go, you have to stop talking like that, because you're talking about something that you can't control, she can't control, I can't control. And if that is the case, it's going to bleed into their diet. It's going to bleed into their training. It's going to bleed into their mindset. And I promise you, when you flip the mindset and you go, okay, what can I do to be better versus I'm being held back? I do not believe there are politics in the sport. I do believe there is psychology, there is repetition, there is human nature, but all of that can be, worked in your benefit. When you start thinking like it's a politics thing, like, oh, who's their coach? Oh, who is their sponsor? That is just a slippery slope that, to me, do not.
If it was politics, I would have placed better this weekend because I'm friends with half the judges. Trust me.
I hear that all the time. Oh, the head judge, I saw them. They know me. Great. When you're up there on stage, you're a blank canvas to them. They're looking at body to body. They're
yeah.
And at some point, they've got to think they expect more out of you too.
They've got to answer to the, believe me, people complain all the way to the top of the sport. Now they don't publicly put that out there, but they've got to answer. So they're making the right decisions because they've got to be able to back those decisions up. You know, and if you're staying at the shows and talking to the judges after, that's how you get better, not by complaining about politics. So I think that's probably a decent one to end on, is just that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I feel like I do hear that every once in a while. But you're right. If that's what you're focused on, if you do believe that that's why placings happen is because of politics, it takes away that drive to want to get better, right? Because you feel like if you
Takes
believe
away
in politics,
responsibility. It takes away your
exactly,
responsibility for the
exactly.
situation.
Yeah, and another thing, I mean, thankfully I don't see anybody like nobody in particular comes to mind, but I've just heard of this before and seen it. People like will post their stage shots on social media next to the person that won, and they're like, I don't understand why I lost. And it's like, I just have to shake my head. It's like, first off, you're just posting a picture. So that is a snapshot, right? How was your posing? How did you look, in comparisons? But I see people do that from time to time. But yeah,
Yeah,
politics.
you're always going to post a picture that highlights you and maybe makes the other person look bad. If you're not there in person, and this is one thing I'll even say to my clients, they'll be like, Coach, I lost the overall. I'll be like, man, I got to agree if you're not in there in person, if you're not there in person and actually with decent seats, you kind of have no leg to stand on. Like,
it's
I've
not
been
even
at
just
shows
there in person, it's near the front too, but near
yeah,
the judges are.
the judges are literally feet away. So, and they're looking up. So the poses are angled towards the judges in a downward fashion. If you have a photographer that's sitting up and they're doing straight on stage shots, two people can look drastically different in these angles, right? So, yeah, I think that's probably more the nuance of the sport, the politics or this and that, or they got it wrong. The naked eye test, I say all the time, it's one of my things I'll ask an athlete. I'll be like, naked eye test, where's your attention go? Right? That's just something that's like, there's an intangible quality. Some people just have that like crispness to their physique. They have that wow factor. They have that confidence, and it's hard to capture that in a picture. Right?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I noticed that at Hurricane this week, just watching like the bikini division, the girl that took all the overalls, she had a great physique, but she also had really great stage presence. Like, it was just that naked eye test. Like, she exuded confidence. Like, you stepped on stage and like you couldn't not look at her, because it was like, whoa, why is she so confident? And so yeah, that usually the girl that wins, it just has that it factor. It's hard to explain unless you're actually there in person. And even the live streams don't capture everything you're going to see in person too, because the lighting can be very different, like in the live streams compared to in person. So that's something to take into account too.
Yeah, it's very much an in-person sport, and it's easy to sit back an armchair quarterback and complain, but and I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm not saying there aren't situations where I've seen, okay, that placing seems a little bit funny, their coach is on the judging panel or some weird something like that. But guess what? I don't complain about it. I just don't go back to that show. I don't put athletes in front of judges that I don't trust. So like, as a coach, you've got to vote, vote with your feet. You don't like something, don't go there.
Yeah.
So it does zero good to complain. It does to me, like, I'm not going to complain. I'm going to show you what my vote is by doing, there's judges that I trust implicitly. And even if I disagree with their placing, I still trust them and I want to learn from them. Right. So I'll bring it up afterwards and be like, this is what I saw. What did you see? I tell you what, those judges respect the crap out of you when you do that. Right. They'll share more with you. They'll be more open with you. If you come at them with that was the wrong decision, you're going to get the FU and you're going to get shut down.
Yep.
Yes.
So they want to help. They want the sport to be better. They want you to be better. They want to, they're not trying to hurt people's feelings. And sometimes the best feedback I've ever gotten has hurt my feelings. Tyler Mannion, one of the first times I ever got feedback from him, I was like, what the hell? Why would he say that? Looking back, it was the absolute right thing to say. I just wasn't prepared to hear it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, oftentimes they're going to tell you what you need to hear, which may not be what you want to hear, but it makes you better in the long run.
Yeah. And remember, like, these judges sat in a chair for 14 hours, judged 500 different bodies in 7 different divisions from amateur to pro. They got to recalibrate, every time someone comes out there.
A lot.
You do it. You sit down in that chair. I've judged shows before. I hated it. I hated trying to separate people.
I can't imagine. I mean, just my mind always goes to like, I'd probably be sitting there and I'd have to pee like 5 times. I don't know how they all sit there and for that long.
I'm sure they're not chugging water, Lexi, all day because they know that's the case. But
that's true. But they have a tough job.
Well, that's why some people will be like, how come they judge the NPC so fast? I go, because they literally look at the best athletes in the world and they know the division like the back of their hand, and they could probably judge the show while you guys are walking across the stage. You don't even need to hit a pose half the time. Now, some people really come to life when you hit a pose, but like the reason they can judge the NPC so quickly is because the difference of the caliber of physiques is so great. Whereas at the pro level, it's like very close.
Everyone's good.
It's down to like, ooh, this little detail versus this little detail. And it will be, athletes have different shapes, so they can't even compare shoulder to shoulder. They got to compare, other things. So yeah, it's, I would be very, very careful to use the politics card in any setting where you're just using it to avoid getting better at your job or better at bodybuilding, or just listen, this is real life. Not everyone's going to be great at bodybuilding. I'm sorry. Like you might not be good at this sport. Sorry. Like, some people are never going to play in the NBA because they're under 6'7". Sorry. It's just life. So yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
All right.
Well, a good one.
Any other myths?
I think we're good.
Not that come to my mind.
Okay. Well, if this one's well received, we can take notes. If you guys want to, on the YouTube video, leave comments below about other myths you've heard. We can follow up, or just DM us and be like, we'd love to hear where the collective thought processes are of people, because then we can make podcasts around that.
Yeah, we'd love that.
All right. Anything else, guys?
That's it.
I think that's it.
All right. Well, we'll see you at the Olympia if anyone's going, and then Command the Stage. End of February. Check it out, prophysique.com/events. Later, Gators.